So this year's free agency is by far going to be the most active that we have seen in years, and by far the juiciest. The rumors have been ridiculous, circulating over the past 48 hours, and my oh my, dynasties will fall, big threes will break up, and there will be a couple of teams that will come out victorious in easily the best free agency class that we've seen in years. First off, starting out in Golden State, because I love talking about my Warriors. The Golden State Warriors have given themselves by the end of this weekend, effectively today, to figure out a new home for Chris Paul. For those who do not remember, CP3 traded for Jordan Poole last offseason as the Warriors decided to move in a different direction without Poole after Draymond knocked the rings out of him, and in return, the Warriors received CP3 and his contract of $30 million. They couldn't move him last year. They're trying to move him this offseason. If they aren't able to do so, they are looking effectively to just waive him off of the team. And a huge reason why they want to do this is because they want to make sure they go into free agency with as much cap flexibility as possible. I mean, with CP on the team, we're talking about $176 million committed to the salary instead of around 130 to 140. But also, losing Chris Paul for nothing would also be very damaging to the Warriors, effectively meaning you moved off of Jordan Poole, one of your bright up-and-coming stars, for literally nothing. So that would also be, and that would be tremendous. Now, moving on to the Klay Thompson deal, and I ain't gonna lie, this is where things get a little messy. We reported like a couple of days ago about the whole Klay Thompson Golden State Warriors not being on the same page, a lot of friction, and a lot of people were like, where is this coming from? How is it that we got to this point? There were a lot of questions that needed to be answered, but we finally got it, and now it's starting to be undeniable that Klay Thompson is going to be going somewhere else. He is not going to sign back with the Golden State Warriors, and the dynasty, the big three, effectively and officially is over. Now, how did we get here? What was the friction? What was the commotion about? Well, it was because Paul George entered the conversation, and now we had a love triangle. If you hear me now? Now, Klay Thompson, as we reported, he wanted some stability, not just money, but he wanted a commitment that extended beyond 2 years, 3 to 4 year contracts. The Warriors told him, nope, we're only going to give you 2 years, and effectively, if you believe you're really worth a 3 to 4 year deal at a significant amount of money, go into free agency to figure it out. But the reason why we don't want to give you anything more than 2 years is because we want to make sure we give ourselves some flexibility moving forward, especially at your age. And a lot of people like myself thought that it was fair, but then this broke. There has now been a report claiming that the Warriors do have a 4-year deal, but instead of giving it to Klay, they were willing to give it to PG, as the Warriors had agreed to give Paul George a max 4-year extension upon arrival. They believed that they had proposed several variations of a trade that the Clippers could and would accept. Steph and Draymond were 100% on board. George gave strong indications he wanted to join the Warriors, but the Clippers never agreed to any version of a trade. Now Paul George, as we now know, for those who are unaware, decided to opt out of his contract, which effectively means he is beyond the Warriors' reach. Now, this right here is big, big news, because now we know that all of the we want financial flexibility, all the we can't give you 4 years talk, all that was BS. So now Klay is thinking to himself, you lied to me. You actually were willing to spend that money, and you're giving it to somebody who effectively was going to replace me. The trade fell through, and so now I feel disrespected, and I'm going to leave regardless of what's going to happen. They're going to allow Klay Thompson and CP3 walk for nothing. $70+ million that they have been juggling around and trying to figure out what they can get out of those two players go for nothing. Tough. And if that happens, the Warriors are basically done. We're talking about a roster that's already committed like around $140 million to this team, even if Chris Paul leaves, and a salary cap that's around $140, $150 million. So they don't have no more wiggle room. They don't have any more adjustments to be made, and it's kind of tough. Now, for those who are wondering, where did Paul George come in this? How did Paul George get in the mix of this? I thought he was going to stay with the Clippers. I thought so as well, and I think that PG wants to stay also, but he wants to get his max contract, and that's something that the Clippers are not willing to offer him. Because of that, he opted out of his deal just yesterday, and now Woj is reporting that he is going to be taking meetings with the Los Angeles Clippers, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Orlando Magic over the next 2 days, which is all very, very interesting. Orlando, to me, is literally just a leverage play. He's trying to figure out how much money he can receive, but Philadelphia has a very interesting offer on the table. If PG decides to go to Philly, an easier conference, play with an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid, as well as a rising star in Tyrese Maxey, he would effectively be a third option, a third star on a team that has a real legitimate chance to win if Joel Embiid is healthy. And at Embiid's best, I could easily argue that even though he also hasn't been available like Kawhi for a lot of the last couple of seasons, he still has been willing to play when injured, and I do believe his ceiling at this point is higher than Kawhi's ceiling. So I can see how there could be a commitment on Paul George's hands, especially from a Philadelphia 76ers team that might be desperate enough to give him a max contract. Be very mindful that Philly has no one on the books. They only have $61 million committed to the roster. 51 of that goes to Joel Embiid because everyone else is expiring. So they have the ability to just go out and max him and not have to give anything in return for the Los Angeles Clippers. That would be huge for Philadelphia. They'll be able to bounce back, put another star alongside Joel Embiid, and build the rest of the roster with a lot of cap flexibility, even if Paul George is on the roster on a max deal. So that is huge, that is massive, and it seems like that's the direction that they're going into. Now, what exactly does this mean for the Clippers? Because that means that all indications are pointing to the fact that the Clippers are willing to effectively lose Paul George for nothing, for a team that started off down this path of a duo of Kawhi and PG that was supposed to win a championship, and it could end prematurely without a championship, without a finals appearance, and only one conference finals appearance to their name as well. This will not only go down as one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history, but moreover, one of the worst trades that we've seen ever, as well as the amount of draft capital that they gave to the Oklahoma City Thunder to kickstart this new era of Clipper basketball will now result into a level of, and I do mean a level of value that is unprecedented. And quite frankly, you could easily argue, as it stands today, it already leans in favor of OKC because Shea is not only the best player in that transaction as it stands today, but they also got Jalen Williams out of that deal as well. And that Miami Heat pick that they got is now in this next upcoming draft class potentially going to be a lottery pick, unprotected, that would go to the Thunder. And then you look at all of the other draft picks that the Clippers gave away as well. Bro, this is going to be tough. Now, the other piece to the Clipper dynamic is James Harden. What exactly is going on with James? How is he dealing with all this new information? Because Harden, in the way that this new CBA is situated, if he wanted to stay with the Clippers, he could have already signed a deal. He could have already been on the team. And yet we haven't heard any news about that whatsoever. But we have heard news that apparently that someone like Harden or Klay or Jonas Valanciunas may take a significant pay cut to go play with the Los Angeles Lakers, which is massive and just groundbreaking. Now, why exactly would James Harden do that? Well, it's because why would James Harden stay with the Clippers? If the Clippers are willing to lose Paul George for nothing at all, effectively, James is going to stay on a team that's not going to be able to compete anymore. And knowing with the amount of money that he is looking for, there's no other title contending team that has a cap flexibility or cap space to put him on the roster. So potentially, apparently how this is being reported, he may be willing to take a pay cut to go play for a contending team, and playing for the inner city rival Los Angeles Lakers seem like it's possible for a mid-level exception. Does anybody believe that? I don't. I do believe it's interesting fan fiction, and I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, that's cool, but I do believe it's still intriguing to know that James Harden has not signed a deal yet with the Clippers, even though he has the ability to do so, because I feel like this is the ongoing conversation that Harden has had ever since he's left Houston. He's bounced around from team to team to team, and every single team he joins, they have buyer's remorse or they're hesitant to hand out contracts, and effectively it just feels like it's the same story over and over and over again. Now, you may be wondering, how exactly can the Lakers do this? How do they even have a full mid-level exception? Well, it's because yesterday, LeBron opted out of his deal, giving the Lakers cap flexibility because now they're dropping $50 million guaranteed now. It's wiped off the books. And when doing so, LeBron apparently, according to Rich Paul, LeBron has officially opted out with LA and will work with the Lakers on his next deal if it means adding an impactful player. He is prioritizing a roster improvement. He is adamant about exuding all efforts to improve the roster, and in doing so, potentially taking a pay cut to make sure the Lakers receive a full mid-level exception, which could then translate into James Harden, Klay Thompson, and Valanciunas. Klay Thompson, I do believe he's going to go into the market tomorrow, get a rude awakening on what his value is across the league, and probably going to come to the conclusion that it's not as high as he once started was. And I do believe he's going to entertain the idea that, hey, even though I might not make the $20 to $26 million that I could make from another team, instead it may only be around $13 million, which is what the MLE is this year, I'm willing to take that level of pay cut to go play for a legit title contending team, play alongside LeBron and AD, fresh new body, fresh new system, fresh start, and really provide evidence to the rest of the world that I am still Klay Thompson and I can add a lot of positives to a team that's trying to compete. The Jonas Valanciunas piece is is literally just trying to put a big next to Anthony Davis, which is something that a lot of people, including myself, has been asking for repetitively over the past couple of years now, ever since the Lakers decided to pivot in a different direction. They need to go back to that, add some size next to AD, put him back to the power forward spot where he is naturally supposed to be playing at. And so that's where those names come from. Now, staying with the Lakers, huge, great news for the Lakers that D'Angelo Russell decided to opt in to the last year of his deal, making around $18, $19 million. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because if he decided to opt out, test his value in free agency, that means that he could potentially have left the Lakers for literally nothing. But now with him opting in, it gives the Lakers a little bit more leverage, another trade piece that they can go out there and say, hey, we can add D'Angelo Russell at $18 to $19 million on an expiring contract coming off of the best year of his career in quite some time. Can add a lot of value to the team, just not the best fit for us because a backcourt between him and Austin Reeves has a very clear ceiling, and it's not going to translate to any deep postseason runs. We need to see a little bit more improvement defensively with that backcourt, and D'Lo just doesn't provide that, and we think that Austin Reeves, younger, has a higher ceiling, and we want to move in that direction. And so being able to move around $19 million with another draft pick to their disposal now is something that a lot of people were wondering about. D'Lo opting in, huge for the Lakers. Now, quickly talking about a couple other noteworthy players that will be available. KCP decided to decline the $15 million player option at the end of his contract, and I think his market value will be roughly around $20 to $23 million. If the Nuggets are not willing to pay that, then yes, KCP will probably find himself a new home. This is big because effectively this has been their 3-and-D wing. They played in the backcourt alongside Jamal Murray. Huge piece to what they were able to accomplish just 2 years ago when they won a championship, and I do believe it'll be hard to just casually replace him. Sure, they have some wing depth on the bench, but again, I think this is a huge loss for not only the Nuggets, but a potential huge addition for whatever team that's willing to pay him that type of money. Another player that a lot of people are questioning, Brandon Ingram. BI and the Pelicans have not been on the same page on the type of money he should be receiving this upcoming offseason. Ingram's camp, they want a max contract. The Pelicans are hesitant to do so, especially in this new era of a CBA that just makes it really difficult to pay someone like BI a max deal. Moreover, adding DeJounte Murray means that they have another shot creator on their roster that could replace a lot of value that Ingram has provided to this team. And more importantly, the improvement of Trey Murphy and Herb Jones also make Brandon Ingram a bit more expendable if he is not willing to get on the same page with the rest of this organization. Another player that a lot of people have been talking about, Zach LaVine. This right here is sad, man. Zach LaVine still not moved out of Chicago. And Bobby Marks of ESPN is saying that even if the Bulls attach a first-round pick, teams still won't be interested in going after Zach LaVine. The talent really isn't questionable because it's pretty undeniable. He is easily a great addition to any roster that is desperately needing some type of shot creation or just volume scoring at an efficient clip, especially if you can piece together a better team than what Chicago has given him. The bigger question is health and the amount of money he's getting paid. Once more, we're talking about a player in the realm of Brandon Ingram as well on a max deal making upwards to $40 to $43 million. It's really hard for any team in the NBA to justify paying someone like Zach LaVine that type of money. And I do believe because of this new CBA, there's been a huge shift in the value of players. If you're not one of the top 20 to 30 players in the NBA, your value is no longer a max deal. Teams are just going to be hesitant to do so because you put them in such a bind financially and the penalties are just ridiculous. And so now I think teams are a bit hesitant to go after someone like Zach LaVine unless they have the flexibility to really absorb his contract while still being a really, really good roster. But I believe the most interesting, low-key, sneaky piece that a team could add to their roster, huge difference maker, Lauri Markkanen out in Utah. There's been a lot of conversations going on about him. The past 2 seasons had his best years of his entire career, effectively giving you around $23 to $25 million, 8 rebounds, shooting splits that are near 50, 40, 90, 7-footer, stretch out the floor, can run up and down, nice athlete. And in a league that's going a little bit more bigger, having this type of versatility on your roster can't go wrong. Biggest positive about Lauri Markkanen, only making $18 million this next upcoming year on a very, and I do mean very consumable contract, going to get more value out of his play in contrast to his contract, and that's always great. The only 2 negatives about Lauri Markkanen is A, he's on expiring, so whatever team is going to trade for him, make sure you understand you're probably going to have to sign him long term. It can't be a rental, and I do believe that he's worth a contract extension. But also the other thing is that Danny Ainge runs the Utah Jazz, and anybody knows what Danny Ainge has been doing all the time in Boston. I'm pretty sure he's going to do with Utah as well. He already did it when he decided to trade and blow up the whole core between Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and got a ridiculous amount of draft capital. Even on an expiring contract, I'm pretty sure he's looking for that type of offer as well. And the wording around it has also been very strategic also. The reports have been the Jazz are willing to listen to trade offers for Lauri Markkanen, meaning that if it's right, then we'll go in that direction. If not, then who knows? Probably 3 draft picks at the bare minimum, or 2 draft picks and a young player with a lot of potential at the bare minimum is what Utah is going to be looking for Lauri Markkanen. And other players who are also available, like I said before, the Brooklyn Nets are looking to blow it up after moving Mikal Bridges. So players like Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith Jr. are also going to be available. DFS is on a really good contract, only $15 million a year. Cam Johnson, 23.6, a little bit up there, but at 28, nice athlete, can give you a lot of upside on the right roster. I believe that it will be worth it long term. Atlanta, another team that I believe will be able to blow it up. To you people out there now in my last video who sat there and said that they're going to keep Dyson Daniel and he's the piece of the future, and putting Dyson Daniel next to Trae Young is why they make that deal. Are y'all serious? Use your brain. Like, what the? Dyson Daniels is not good enough to justify not rebuilding a roster, especially when Trae Young, after this year, only has 3 years left on his deal. So basically, the Hawks have a 2-year window to try to make something shake, which more than likely they're not going to do. If the San Antonio Spurs said, hey, we're going to give your draft picks back for Trae Young, they would do it and they should do it. But Dyson Daniels is not the difference maker on them preventing themselves from making any significant changes in the roster. So please stop and spare me. Nevertheless, the players that have been rumored to be moved, Clint Capella has been in the conversation for the past couple of months now, and now because of the DeJounte Murray trade, also DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovic are probably going to be in those conversations once more as well. And finally, in what in the hell is going on news, I wasn't able to report on this in my Mikal Bridges trade video because this happened later on after that. So right after that Mikal Bridges trade, the Houston Rockets and Brooklyn Nets decided to trade a bunch of draft picks, and it was really interesting because some of the draft picks that the Houston Rockets sent out to Brooklyn were draft picks that they received during the James Harden trade, which didn't make any sense at all. If you're Houston and you start to see Brooklyn is finally blowing it up, you won that Harden trade. The whole reason why you hold on to those draft picks is because one day you hope that the big three implodes on itself, it doesn't work out, and they start tanking, and that later on down the line, those future draft picks turn out to be something of value, and you were positioned to do so, especially in the next 2 to 3 draft classes. But now, for whatever reason, the Houston Rockets are giving back the Brooklyn Nets their draft capital. Shout out to the Nets, I believe probably the biggest winners so far in this year's free agency. And also on the other side, the Houston Rockets now have the Phoenix Suns pick, which is all very interesting, and it kind of led down this path of Phoenix believing that they should be in a position to dangle some of the draft picks for the Phoenix Suns that they traded during the Kevin Durant trade that could make the Suns whole again by giving them their draft picks back while also giving them Alfred Sengun and maybe even some more draft capital as well for KD. Why would the Suns do this? Well, it's because it's the inevitable that the Suns, like maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're a Suns fan, you don't know this, but it's not working. With the amount of money that they've committed to that roster, they don't really have any wiggle room at all to make any type of improvements in addition. And in the Western Conference that's very competitive, they just don't have the ability to really compete with all these other teams. It's crazy. That's another video for another day. But in short, the Houston Rockets believe that they are going to blow it up sooner than later. And when that does happen, they want to be the team at the top of the list to have the best assets to go after someone like KD or maybe even Devin Booker. And I want to say this. If you're Houston, you're telling me that you are willing to give up a draft pick and a pick swap in draft classes that will more than likely lean towards top 5 selections, so potentially missing out on the opportunity to draft Cooper Flagg. Then you also are willing to move Alfred Sengun, and you're also willing to move potentially even more draft picks for Kevin Durant? Hey, y'all dumb. Let's just say it like that. That makes no sense at all, but that's literally what they want to do. I don't necessarily believe that the Suns are at least thinking about or contemplating the idea of blowing up that big three because they know they don't really have much going on. So even though, yes, there have been reports claiming that, oh no, the Suns and KD are all happy on the same page, I don't think the decision makers out in Houston are dumb. Like, there has to be some background noise going on about there being some disgruntled people out in Phoenix. And I think that's the reason why they did that. You make a move like this because you have some information that will lean towards you being able to benefit off of it. But for Kevin Durant, that's a move that you make for Luka, Giannis, AD, Jokic, Tatum, Anthony Edwards, not a 36-year-old Kevin Durant. No. Anyway, that was a lot and practically just the tip of the iceberg, but if you want to see even more of it, I will be live today and probably live right now on playback.tv/Lowe's Room, reacting to all of the news and rumors and circulating trades live during the first day of NBA free agency. So make sure you go check me out. Link in the description. We're going to have a blast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as well to be updated on more NBA trade rumor content all summer long. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.